the difference between, before you release. You get to your finish first and then you release the swing. If your finish is an active part of going across your body, so if you're thinking of, I gotta finish here, there is no more release, because you have actively swung across your body, all right? There are some instances when you're out on the court, really short in, and you have a lot of angle to hit, it changes slightly, but you're still lifting first. And that is the key. You're lifting after contact, your swing is essentially finished, after which you then release. And depending on where on the court you're positioned, what kind of shot you're hitting, the actual release changes. Also, how much force are you under? Are you playing at a very high level? You will have a faster swing across, but not at the expense of getting to that position, which we call the finish position, which is higher than your contact point was.
Elevating your elbow. My elbow goes up, the racket goes down. Again, into the stroke, and the elbow up, and the racket goes down. Elbow up, and the racket goes down. And by elevating the elbow, the racket won't drop away from me. That's unnatural. And it won't drop into the traditional scratch your back position here, which is inefficient. It will actually drop into the correct place and with the correct method.
I'm not going to go into too much on the style of the take back. I'm literally talking about at contact and what happens immediately following contact. You want to make sure that the elbow gets a lift before there's anything that goes in any other direction, whether it's traditional or whether it's modern, quote unquote. Consistency and power, right? So I cannot get consistent power if I don't lift my elbow. It's not possible.
But what happens when the ball is low or when the ball is high? Then I see players struggle because they're trying to hit a low ball and they're firming up and tightening up their wrist in order to keep the racket head horizontal, because they just assume incorrectly that the racket head must be horizontal. It does not have to be horizontal. Your racket head can be like this. You can easily hit the ball with the racket head down, and it's just gonna work out really nice.
Cool. So think about the back of the hand to solve the problem. Problem of not finishing the stroke is not going to be solved by concentrating on finishing the stroke. The cause is actually in the contact. So keep the racket face closed by seeing the back of your hand through the stroke, and then feel that you're seeing the back of the hand while watching the ball. And then you'll be able to put the two things together and make pushing and slow and cautious tennis a thing of the past. Closing the racket face prior to contact. And to do this, think about the back of your hand, because if we were totally aware of where the racket head was, then we wouldn't actually need, and you're swinging quickly, it's very difficult to be aware of where that racket head is. Some players, so think about the back of your hand. See, as I make the stroke here, I can see the back of my hand, and I know that I can see it without looking. As I come into the swing here, I can see the back of my hand, and I know I can see it without looking. And as I make the stroke here, I can see the back of my hand, and I know I can see it without looking. If I know I can see the back of my hand, the racket face cannot open up. As soon as I open the racket face, then the back of the hand is invisible to me, it's direct.
Vai armar o golpe, vai entrar por baixo da altura da bola, você vai começar a subir a sua raquete, vai fazer o contato e vai parar nessa posição. O que é essa posição? Seu braço estendido, as cordas da raquete para baixo e a raquete com uma continuação do seu braço. Então você faz esse movimento aqui. O que ajuda? Duas coisas. Primeiro, prolongar o golpe. A você prolongar o golpe, com isso a sua bola é mais funda, e depois você colocar o efeito top spin. Você entrar por baixo da altura da bola, começar a subir e parar aqui por enquanto. Na próxima etapa a gente vai terminar o golpe. Mas...
And it's going to create the right amount of natural topspin. That's what I love about this drill, is I'm not accelerating to get topspin. I'm actually being super smooth with my swing. Let's watch again.
Nadal, you'll see that when they execute their backswing position, they're all going to achieve this identical configuration. And the most common mistake that stops hardworking players like yourself from creating the racket flip, which allows you to generate that fluid, effortless contact in topspin, is that backswing position. So the secret is to make sure that when you set your racket during the backswing, you're gonna have your right arm lined up with your right hip, the racket above and away from the hand at about a 45-degree angle, which is created by the wrist being in an extended position.
Now that forehand. Now basically, on the flatter shot, it is very important that the racket and the hand move way out to the target forward like this, okay? It's also often called extension. You need to make sure you get that racket out that way, and you're not going to have as much upward angle like this as you do when you're hitting with heavy topspin, okay? So you focus more on swinging out to the target like this. And then one great drill for this that I first learned about from Robert Lansdorp, famous coach, is to swing out, okay, and then catch your racket way out here in front of the body. See how much distance there is between my hand and my body, and you catch it way out here. You kind of exaggerate, okay? And when you're flattening it out, you're not going to catch it quite as high as you would when you're hitting with more topspin, okay? So that's something you can focus on. When you want to give it more spin, okay, you increase the upward angle like this. You increase the upward angle and you catch it. And as you can see, it's still out in front of the body, but I'm catching it up higher here above my head. And if you want to work on flattening it out, once again, you go more out to the target, a little flatter, and then you catch it in a little bit lower position.
Go more down, because otherwise you hit it here. You're supposed to hit it there. You're supposed to hit it when the ball is lower, so you can have a much more grip, longer grip on it. So you toss, let the ball go down a bit more, and then push it up.
Okay.
Good.
And the way that the right elbow, the racket elbow, goes back is in a straight line back. So the rest of the stroke is rotating around, but the elbow is going in a straight line, straight back to you at the camera. So we have a linear movement here, preparing for a rotational movement of the stroke. But how much rotation do we need that the pros do? They push the elbow back in a straight line, go into the unit turn, and now the left arm comes across the body in a straight line. Looking at it from this direction, I'm here and I'm here. And when I move in this direction, instead of allowing the hand to come forwards, when I come across here, I now have stress, tension, and strength in my pectoral muscles, deltoids, in fact, all of the major muscles of the upper body. So the elbow goes back in a straight line, the elbow comes across in a straight line, and then I swing. Once again, elbow back in a straight line, elbow across in a straight line, and I swing. From this direction into the unit turn, elbow straight, and I swing. When you make this movement and blend rotational and linear movements, then you really do use the major muscle groups of the body. You also facilitate and create a correct kinetic chain. As I go into the unit turn, and now the elbow comes straight across the body, and now the body leads the arm, which leads the racket.
Is hit flat, right? I don't want you hitting flat into the ball. Tennis is an edge game. Tennis is a game of edges, learning whether it's the slice, whether it's an overhead, hitting a slice serve, whether it's a topspin. It's about leading toward the ball with the edge of the racket. So
Second one, just basically wait until that last second to stay on the toes, and then explode to the ball. That was something that I never really had on my forehand. So the way I've applied this to my game is feeling that I'm never really too stationary on my forehand. I'm always in motion. It creates this really dynamic feeling on the forehand side. As you see, I'm gonna split, I'm gonna move to the ball. I'm never really fully stopped. You see, I'm allowing my feet to keep moving all the way to basically when I'm about to hit. And by doing that, I'm actually able to feel like I'm much more fluid. There's not like a hitch, a stop, this kind of weird sensation where it's like, oh, now I'm kind of like having to catch up again with the ball. It all feels like it's one motion. And of course I'm still gonna look.
こっち側です、こっち側。
あ、ここ。
こっち側。そう。だからこういうイメージ。
あー、なるほど。
Use your wrist as a whip. Most of the acceleration actually comes from your wrist. If you hold your grip too tight, it can't do its job. So relax your hand and let the head of the racket come back very fast.
Only the fact that a lot of recreational players are not moving their feet when the ball appears to be easy, but from a mental standpoint, they also relax. They become nonchalant, and not only is the intensity out of their feet gone, the intensity is gone out of the whole body because they are underestimating the ball and they're playing in a nonchalant way. When the intensity goes out of the feet, it's gonna go out of your entire body, and your stroke, your mechanics are gonna suffer as a result of it. So for all you guys that have this habit of standing around and not being on your toes, I'm gonna give you a great drill that you can do without an opponent, without a coach. You can self-feed. So obviously on a self-feed, we can control the feet quite well, and we can get away with not moving and still hit a quality shot. But you're not gonna do that anymore. You're gonna self-feed, but you're gonna move like crazy and make those shoes squeak. I'm gonna show you a few examples. See how my shoes are squeaking? I don't really have to move, but I'm moving anyway. I'm providing the entire body intensity, and I'm preventing to be surprised the last second by the ball. You see my feet? I am not setting early. I'm moving way into the stroke, and I'm playing these balls with a lot of intensity. If you're too loose when you make contact with the ball, you will start spraying the ball and you will have absolutely no control. So naturally, what needs to happen when we meet the ball, the wrist needs to be in an extended position so that it can provide maximum stability to the racket head when we meet the ball. So there are two options on the forehand. We can set this position in place prior to the racket drop, and this is what many elite tennis players do. So basically, we're going to extend the wrist backwards in the same position that we will get into when we make contact. So we can set this immediately. And now naturally, as we go through the motion on our forehand, the wrist will lag behind. You can see that the acceleration of the racket forward will make the wrist lag behind even further. So naturally, even with a set position of the wrist prior to the acceleration phase, the wrist will still lag behind further from the acceleration.
I want to see this, and then you come here, okay? So the ball, when you hit the ball, you follow the ball, okay? And then you come back, okay? Let's go. Yes. Ooh. So much better. Bravo.
But the more precisely that I can swing through the line of the ball, then the less errors I'm likely to make. I'm going to be able to go closer to the lines, and I'm going to be able to hit more powerfully with more confidence, because that long elongated hitting zone where I'm in alignment with the ball should mean that I have more control even though I'm swinging very quickly. But how to set up this alignment perfectly? I don't have to adjust. If I'm aligned incorrectly, then I have to adjust. So I need to make this alignment before I actually begin the swing to the ball. And a really great reference to use to this is to think of shoulder, shoulder, elbow. So as the ball is coming to me, if I line up so that my shoulder, shoulder, and elbow are actually all in a line, a direct line with the ball and where I want the ball to go, I then swing obviously to the right of me from that line, and you should be in a perfectly aligned, perfectly synchronized position with the ball. See how this position changes subtly but significantly when I actually go into the other side. So if I was playing an inside-out forehand from here, then my alignment is over here, shoulder, shoulder, elbow. If I'm going cross-court, then my alignment is here, shoulder, shoulder, elbow. If you concentrate hand, nope, that was a feeling of pushing. But from this elbow position here, I start to get a whip-like motion. Now let's add another link of the chain and go another step further. And we're now going to swing from the right shoulder. And from the right shoulder, yep, Now I can feel much more speed and I can hear the different sound. Shoulder, the limitation is the left shoulder. And now if I swing from the left shoulder, I'm getting a whole rotation of the body, and really I can feel and hear the racket whipping through the air, and it's going to create more power and more spin. But the pros do something else. The pros don't just initiate with the left shoulder, they actually externally rotate the left shoulder. Now, this dream fashion as possible is to use the offhand, the left hand, and to spread the fingers and pull it into the shoulder. It's much easier to do this than to think of the shoulder because I'm very aware of what my hand is doing. And in the fraction of a second in the timing of the forehand, I'm not quite so aware of what my shoulders or the other parts of my body are doing. So now I begin the stroke here, and my left hand is going to come into my shoulder with the fingers spread and wide, and I make the stroke. And now I can feel much more speed. So again, here, into the shoulder and swing. Even the best players